So today I'm going to talk about my hair transplant that I got done in Istanbul, Turkey in August of 2024. So I'm recording this now. It is the middle of April. So we're looking at about 7.5 months since the surgery. So you can see the hair here. And what I got done was I got 4,000 grafts implanted. So basically, if you don't know, it's called FUE, Follicular Unit Extraction. They take it from the back and they move it around. So what I'm going to discuss is when I noticed my hair loss, what I did to kind of manage it, because I did manage it for a couple of years, the emotions attached to why I did it, where I went in Istanbul, and go over again my results. So I started noticing my hair loss probably 10 years ago in my mid 30s, or early to mid 30s. I would get different shampoos, would do my best to kind of grow, basically, guys that are losing their hair do a really good job of the comb over and doing things to mask it. So I had my hair was really thick because I'm half Asian. So for the most part, a lot of the hair I could just use to mask. So in older pictures of me, you can see a bit of a comb over, things like that, covering this area a little bit. But that wasn't where a lot of my hair loss had started. It started in the crown area. And so, and I'm going to include photos and things like that throughout this video. And so it started in the crown area. And, I think the first thing you do is you're in denial. And then you just get you ask around, and there's different products and shampoos and stuff people suggest. So I started doing that, vitamins. And there wasn't really it was very slow. So it wasn't something that I thought about a lot. And because my hair was thick in other areas, it was something I could easily kind of mask just with the hairstyle. I noticed in my late 30s, the crown area really starting to go. And that's when I started masking it with a product in the US called Top It. There's another one called Boldify here. So this is it's like a keratin, and it's a black powder that you put in areas. It binds to the hair, and it creates kind of like an effect of density. Because when you're thinning, it's really just light hitting your scalp. So it's kind of like diffusion effect of light hitting your scalp, so you can kind of see the areas that you can see your scalp, and so this blocks it basically. You can also get this, I forget the name of it, but you can get like a tattoo, and that's very popular. Something I considered many times, and you can actually just start tattooing your scalp in areas where you're bald, and people just do it like where it looks like a shaved look, but it's just really just dots. But you can do that in areas where you are balding, and that will prevent diffusion basically, because people won't see your scalp, so it will create an illusion that your hair is there. So yeah, so I started doing that, and for the most part, it was fine, to be honest. I started dabbling into minoxidil foam, which is Rogaine for the most part. And other products, it's 5% minoxidil, and you put it in your hair. And I was doing that, you're supposed to do like once or twice a day. Like you can just do it at night before you go to bed. It was hard to keep up. I did see a huge improvement in my crown area. I must admit that, because I remember going to Vietnam in 2019 and getting pictures of people taking pictures of me, and I would see the back of my hair, and it really just looked fine. I could tell you there was a bit of a drop off, because once that happened, I kind of was a little bit less interested in using it, because I was like, oh, my hair's back. But minoxidil, really, the truth is you have to use it for the rest of your life if you want to have those effects. And it was a struggle. Mainly too is that minoxidil, it's messy, it's sticky. And also when I'm using this topic stuff, it mixes in and stuff. So it's just a big mess. Also, this gets all over your pillow and stuff. It becomes kind of a nightmare. So I was really good for that for a couple years. And then my my hairline started receding, or had already been starting to recede, but it was starting to get noticeable because your forehead, the distance between, your eyebrow and your forehead starts to get, and also you just get that like bald effect. And you notice that when people like, sometimes when women put their hair in a ponytail and stuff like that, and it compresses their hair, or you can just see like it's clear roundness around the top of the head and stuff. And again, I masked it with volumizing powder, and then I started putting Topic on the front of it. And so it was just like a huge production of like pouring this and, not getting your hair wet, feeling very self-conscious about it raining or the wind blowing. And I'd really thought about getting a hair transplant many times. It's very expensive in the US. And I'm from America, though I'm half Asian. And I was like, I'd watched a lot of YouTube videos. There was a stage where I was in South Korea. South Korea was very popular. I was like, well, they probably know really, Asian men's hair really well. I think it was like $1.50 per graft, depending if you wanted to shave it or not. So it was still a pretty good deal. And I kind of was reluctant to go to Istanbul, Turkey, just because it was such a basic, it felt basic. Like it was like everybody goes to Turkey. And there was always, even, when you're getting something substantially less than you would in the States, obviously you question like, is this quality? Am I going to regret this? Is it gonna damage, you don't want to make something worse. So it was just floated in my head. And I was spending a lot of time in Europe, but still, I was in Bulgaria, the Balkans, and there was a place in Albania and Tirana that was doing it. I tried to schedule with them. I was starting to see a lot. It was more visual because a lot of people were going to Turkey and in the Balkans to get it done. And so it was always coming up. And I was like, oh, maybe I should do it. And and I was in Buenos Aires actually. And when I was in Buenos Aires, that's when it really came to a head because there is a tipping point for every guy. And we all reach that in different ways because we're kind of in denial, and also because it takes so long for the hair to start receding that you get used to your new normal, right? You get used to, you see people like hanging on a thread, like they're clearly, it's a comb over, or the hairline is like way back here. But oftentimes we see ourselves, moving forward and not from the profile view. And so we can kind of justify like, oh, it's not as bad as I think it is as a guy. And this is what we see. So we're just like, oh, it looks fine. But, it's really not fine because when you look at the profile, you can see the line really back here. And so I remember I was on a couple dates and in Buenos Aires, and women would put their hair their hand in your hair and stuff. And I really started getting self-conscious about even that. And but I was fortunate enough to meet women. I remember someone I was dating in the Balkans who, at that point, I was just wearing hats all the time. And I think that's the standard dress code for somebody that's losing their hair, is just wearing a hat all the time. And there's a lot of people that said they didn't even know what my hair looked like because I wore a hat all the time. And I remember she said really something kind about like, Marvin, like you don't have to wear it, because I would literally like get up out of bed and put a hat on. And then she would say something like, you don't need to do that. I know what your hair looks like and it's fine. And I thought that was a very kind thing to hear from somebody that you're seeing, because it's definitely an insecurity. But when I was in Buenos Aires, I started just getting tired. I think it was the bathroom that I was renting at Airbnb was just, it sucked. And it would just take forever to get, the hair where I wanted it comfortable. There was a lot of me growing the mid scalp hair to try to cover that. It was just a lot of work. It's just always a lot of work because as you do all of this and you have to hairspray it and make sure everything stays in place. And I think it just ended up just breaking me. I was just like, I can't live like this anymore. I either need to do something or I need to just shave it off. I was at that point. And I actually posted a picture of me photoshopped that had all my head shaved off. But I could tell you I wasn't ready for that. I don't know if every guy is, but I was not ready for it. And so I went back to the Balkans in Europe for the summer of 2024 and asked around. There was a couple clinics that I'd seen influence promote, and then I ran into somebody in Bulgaria that had gotten it done, and they got it done at one of the clinics that I was interested in going to. And so I think that reinforced, okay, so he's happy with the results. I think he had gone twice because the challenge is timing. So when we talk about getting a hair transplant, you should really wait until you have some significant hair loss, because you'll end up just chasing it because you're just some science behind it. The hair on the sides and back is where they harvest from, because that hair, some argue it doesn't terminate, and some just argue that it just takes a long time for it to terminate. It could take, until you're 90 or something. So it's just not programmed to really fall out or get lost. But the mid scalp is where it happens. And typically what happens, and you can see the diffusion here, because it's, hair transplant is like an illusion of more hair. But basically what happens is it starts in the crown and it starts in the frontal, and then it just kind of moves together. So they have a scale for it. And so basically it just meets in the middle, and then you have total hair loss all the way. So if you do it too early, like a LeBron James is famous for, is that he did it so early that his mid scalp here he kept losing it, but then you end up running out of hair to cover that. So you have all this great hair in the front, and then you have this huge patch in the center. So I think he's fixed that since. I don't really know. I don't follow him. So basically, I just had the front, and I'll probably post a picture right now of what it looked like, because they before they shave your head, they expose everything, and it's very embarrassing and very I didn't often want to see myself like that. So it's not like I ran to see how much hair I'd lost, that month or that week or something. But I sent them a message like in July. I sent a couple places messages. The popular places were like Hair Time Clinic, which is popular because Mr. Olympia went there, Sebum, and then a lot of athletes have gone there. They do a lot of like influencer marketing where they offer free hair transplants to famous people. So, and then there's Blue Magic Group, which was really popular as well. And then there was Smile Hair Clinic. And so I ended up going to Smile Hair Clinic, actually, and they were really friendly. And that was a friend of mine that I'd known and gone there. He recommended it. Super professional. And I'll talk about how much it costs. But the process basically is, you schedule a date, you pay it. There's different tiers because it's not based on how many grafts. I think it was like up to 5,000 grafts or something like that. Because a lot of clinics just try to get as many grafts as possible out that without damaging your hair, and also based on what your situation is as well. So you pay you pay dodeposit, pay the rest, and deposit is really low. It's like $250, and then you pay the rest when you're there. They pick you up from the airport. The cost doesn't involve the ticket. I was in a neighboring country, so it was like on an hour flight. But I arrived, they pick you up, they take you to this like super nice 5-star hotel. It's covered for 2 nights. And so luckily I had some family in Istanbul. So I had a nice dinner, got picked up in the morning. They have 2 start times. I think it was like 8 a.m. and like noon or something like that. And then for the whole process, they ask you how you're doing. Just basically are you okay? Are you okay? You change into scrubs. They take pictures, they set expectations. One of the big things that I really focused on was the frontal hairline, because I didn't want if you look at Chris Sebum and some other people, they have a really straight line, which I hate, because that's really just a huge sign that you have a hair transplant. And so I really wanted a lot of irregularity in the front. So I think they did a kind of a zigzag pattern. And he was so proud. He actually stopped me, because the morning is when they harvest the back. They take all the follicles out. and then you get lunch, and then they implant it in the afternoon. He stopped me on my way to lunch, the doctor did, just to pull the bandages and show me that he had done this widow's peak here. And he was like so proud of it. And at the time, it didn't seem like anything because it just seemed like three little holes. And I couldn't imagine that making a huge difference. But, beauty and cosmetics is actually a game of millimeters, to be honest. Like, attractive people are attractive only because their eyes are spaced, just that far apart, or, things like that. So it's just a game of really millimeters. In sports, I say it's a game of inches, but in beauty, it's a game of millimeters. So yeah, that was a very receptive doctor, really funny, really great staff. In terms of pain, which people ask me about, the only time it's actually painful is when they're administering the numbing agent, which is through a syringe, and it has acid in it. So it feels like, you could argue, it feels like mosquito bites, like burning mosquito bites. And it is, it's very it's uncomfortable, but it's only for a few minutes, and then you can't. I couldn't feel my head for a while. Like, the sensation didn't come back fully for a long time. I'm talking weeks and months. And you'll see sometimes that numbing cream, you see people swollen because it like drains down their face and stuff, and it makes their face swollen. That never happened to me. But there were a couple times where there was areas they were pulling that the numbing agent did not affect. So I'd feel the pain. But as soon as I told them, they would be like, oh, sorry. And they would just inject more. So, and it was, you can feel pressure. Like, you could tell something's happening, but I had no idea where they were working on my head. Like, they worked on the sides and back, but I couldn't feel any of it. And I do have pictures, but be careful. If I post them, it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant pictures. A lot of blood because your head is very vascular. So they did that. It was 4,000 grafts, and it's a team of, I think, 3 or 4 clinicians. Very sweet. And I think the reason why I got comfortable with going to Turkey was because they do it all day, every day. So I'm not saying that's the only reason, but they call it Turkish hairlines as a joke. And so, they say 10,000 hours for like perfection and stuff. So those people are going through, and, it's not cheap. It's not super cheap. You can get super cheap. I don't recommend getting super cheap. So I would I would say 3,000 euros or 3,500 USD to 5,000 is a range. You could obviously pay more. I paid around the $3,500 range, and that the lower tiers tend to be like, you're not dealing with a doctor, just working with a staff. But the doctor came in the beginning. He made the incisions in the areas for the implantation. He was always available. And every step of the way, people were just saying like, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? The only gripe I had is I didn't feel like the lunch was pretty weak. It was like a box lunch, and it was very quick. It was like 30 minutes. Because I think those people, they want to get out too, because it can take a very long time. It's a long day. So I think total I was in and out in 7 hours. And when they're implanting it, it's just like an art form, because they're all in synchronicity, and just 3 or 4 of them, and they're just working on your hair, trying to implant 4,000 grafts. And 4,000 grafts doesn't mean 4,000 hairs. A graft can have between, I think, 1 hair to 4 hairs. So it's a lot. And I did talk to them during it. When I was getting the hair taken out, extracted, it was a little uncomfortable because you're on your face. Like, if you can think about being like on a massage table, there's a little cutout hole you put in your face, but like, your sinuses start building up, and it's very uncomfortable to sit in your face for hours. I was there for a couple hours, but when you're getting them implanted, and so for the most part, it's relatively comfortable. You can chat, ask questions. They speak English. Yeah. So I think that was nice. Talked about Turkey and their experience, and Yeah, so it was really nice. And then you're done, and then they transport you back to the hotel. I think there might have been a few guys with me that were finishing like all kind of around the same time, but they're very clear about like post transplant maintenance because when they implant everything, the grafts are just sitting there with by sheer gravity. Like there's nothing keeping them there. So if you hit something with your head, you could dislodge the grafts, they could fall out, and then you've clearly paid for nothing. So, so yeah, even when you're like walking into the van, they ask you to lift your hand up so you know where the ceiling is in reference to your head. And you can't sleep on your head. You have to sleep kind of like at an angle, like for, did it for about 1 to 2 weeks. I was so tired from the surgery that sleeping the first night wasn't a problem. But sleeping up, yeah, that it's uncomfortable, but it's in the long run very short term. I don't even think about that anymore, to be honest. But yeah, you just set the pillows up, make sure you're not really touching. But there's bandages and stuff, and they're just more worried about the grafts touching the pillow and the bed and like being removed and stuff. Because like if you're rubbing against it, when you're sleeping at night, so it's good that your head's kind of floating, so it's not touching anything. Yeah. So that was the experience at Smile Hair Clinic. If you tell them about Marvin sent you, I think they'll give you a discount and they'll give me a credit for it. I don't know anymore, but if you like the video, please subscribe and mention Marvin sent. So it's nice to share this and, maybe it'll get me a coffee or something. But yeah, so after maintenance, I'll talk about that next. So they give you a bunch of shampoo and stuff to because you have scabs and so you're putting this on and the scabs should get removed I think after like a week or 10 days or something like that. I still had a bunch left, so I ended up getting like a toothbrush and just gently scrubbing them out and stuff. Anything I thought was like easy because they when you're putting water constantly because you have a spray bottle in the beginning and you're constantly supposed to keep it moist. And so after a while, they just kind of naturally fall out. But I remember somebody showing me they had to use a toothbrush to kind of dislodge a couple of the scabs. And so you can't wear a hat. I think basically, you're really sensitive the first 2 weeks, and then the first month you're not supposed to work out. But relatively speaking, I think a month or so, you're kind of fine to do everything. Basically, you can go work out because in the beginning they don't want the grafts to fall out, but they get cemented in within about 2 weeks or 10 days. And then they don't want bacteria getting into like, because you have exposed, these 4,000 holes, these tiny little holes in the back of your head. You don't want to I use like a bacteria ointment or something like that. You don't want to get infected basically. And if you're sweating a lot as you're working out, you have the chance of getting dirt and stuff like that. I shaved my head, but there was definitely people who didn't. I think your risk for infection or something, because your hair gets dirty, is higher, but it can be done. When I went back for the follow up the next day, because it's the surgery, and then the next day they pick you up and just they either will wash your hair or just check to make sure that everything's fine, and then they just take you to the airport. Unless you want to stay longer, you can, but it only covers 2 nights. And so yeah, so I flew back to Bulgaria and stayed there for about a week, and then I healed back in Albania. But the big thing too is shock loss. You'll see some decent growth in the first month or two, and then typically the hair just falls out, and it's a natural hair cycle. Admittedly, that didn't happen to me. My hair never fell out, so that my results might reflect the fact that I didn't go through that one stage, so the hair just kept growing. But the hair doesn't grow at the same rate. Your sides will always grow faster. So yeah, it was a rough 4 months of like, I was wearing like, they give you a hat, like a Gilligan's hat. And I was wearing that a lot just because it's really not, watching your hair grow in that way is not pleasant. Because first it's like, looks like you're recovering from some accident. And your hair is just all in different lengths and stuff like that. It's just it's not pleasant to look at. I remember I went to a wedding and I had the Gilligan's hat, but then we were in a church and somebody's like, you have to take off your hat. And I was like, oh God, what a nightmare. So I did it anyway. But a lot of people were like, oh, it's not as bad as you think it is. So yeah. And then they recommend, I can't say the clinic recommends this, but I think they might have. But generally speaking, your hair will continue. The hair that wasn't transplanted, and even the hair that, the hair that's not transplanted, like this here, that has the potential to still fall out because it's still programmed to. So I can let it fall out and then get another hair transplant. It's not uncommon to get a second hair transplant, whether you're in the States or Istanbul, because of natural hair loss, or you can get medication. I like using minoxidil oral. It's not what it's a kind of an off-label use, basically. Minoxidil was the side effect was hair growth, but it was for blood pressure. And so they noticed in a trial that people were growing hair. So I got a prescription for like minoxidil. And so in America, they only have them in 2.5 milligrams. So you have to cut them in half, basically. And that'll be this, I think this is a 3-month supply. And then I went ahead and got finasteride 2, which is also known as Propecia. And so minoxidil helps to strengthen the hair you have and help regrow. And finasteride is supposed to stop hair from falling out because it falls out because of DHT, which is an enzyme that is produced by testosterone, basically. And so that makes your hair fall out. And so it blocks the DHT. And there's been some results people have talked about where there's some sexual side effects, but I think it's like at 1%. And basically I said, if that happens, then just stop using it. So you have to, at your own risk, basically, but it sounds like the risks are pretty low. So I actually just got these because I'm not currently in the States. And so my dad happened to be visiting, so I ordered it to me. But yeah, I'm really excited to see that. And just, again, to see the hair growth. For the most part, no one can tell. I would say the crown is coming out really slow to the point where like either it's finished and I just don't have enough grafts back there. But I'm at that point where I don't know if I would ever go back to really using this stuff, like, because I just don't know if I really care as much. Like, you put all this emotion and effort into it, and then you're like, I did it. This is the best I can do. But I also want to say that, like, I talk about this with my friends too, because getting a hair transplant, I think, boosts a lot of confidence. I know it has done for me, but also it doesn't end there, and I know that getting a hair transplant helps, but eating better, exercising, staying active, taking care of my skin and my teeth and my general appearance is also very important, because a hair transplant really can't fix like ugly. It can't fix your bad habits. It can help build some confidence, but like anything, you still carry, whatever is in you along the way. And obviously people, depending on what kind of surgery you get, like people will treat you differently, but ultimately, they always say like a fit person will tend to be more attractive than somebody who's kind of attractive or attractive but not fit. So I think this is part of, the whole thing of like wanting to make sure as I'm in my 40s, to be better at taking care of myself. And it's nice that there's one less hour I have to spend in the bathroom stressing about my hair. So I can stress about other things like my crow's feet and go to the dentist. But I am getting more active and I'm trying to drink more water and have a better active, natural, eating, better food and stuff. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you like this, and I'll make more videos about other topics, but feel free to put in the comments questions you have, and I'll try to answer them. And if there's enough, maybe I'll just do another video about my hair transplant. Currently, I'm in Da Nang, Vietnam. So if you're around, please hit me up. Maybe I'll do like a in-person meeting about this. But thank you. Bye.